Okay, welcome everyone. We're continuing on our series of similes of the Buddha, and we just finished our mini-series on similes for the 5 hindrances. And last week we did the last hindrance, doubt. And I mentioned that doubt is completely eradicated when we have when we realize the first level of awakening, the first level of enlightenment. So I thought tonight I would speak about the first level of awakening. It's called entering the stream. So what does this mean? The goal of our Buddhist practice is to end mental suffering. That's, it's to help us to be happy. And a basic concept is that trying to get happiness from the sensory world is fraught with difficulties. It's unreliable and impermanent. And so our practice is to learn how to get happiness just from within, to be able to develop that within ourselves, so we don't have to rely on conditions being perfect out there in the world. We can learn how to create this happiness from within. And the realization of this happens in 4 stages, or I should say the end result. The Buddha said the Dhamma is good in the beginning, good in the middle, and good at the end. And so many of us shared last Tuesday when we were talking about doubt. We were talking about the experiences we had in our meditation practice that helped us to overcome doubt because we had these positive experiences. So that's early on in our meditation practice, we get these good results. So that's the good in the beginning. Well, awakening is the good in the end, because this is sort of the final end stage. And it doesn't happen just all at once. It happens in 4 stages. And perhaps you can click through the 4 stages one after another. But at most, if you enter the stream, which is the first level of awakening, then it's a maximum of 7 lifetimes before you're fully awakened. And the current lifetime counts, so it just means 6 more rebirths. So the Buddha, and I'll just give another analogy, and I think I talked about this when I talked about doubt as well. We can think about full awakening as a hot air balloon that's floating free. And before that, this hot air balloon is tied down to the ground with 10 strong ropes. And those 10 ropes are called the fetters. And the fetters are the hindrances that we've just spent the last month or so talking about, plus subtle variations of the hindrances. And in the first level of awakening, that's called stream entry, 3 of those ropes are cut, forever cut, never to be reattached. And then the second level of awakening, greed and aversion, like craving, wanting, and aversion, negativity, hatred, they're very strong habit energies, and they only get weakened. The rope doesn't get cut on the second level of awakening, but they get weakened. They sort of get partially sliced through. Then on the third level of awakening, those 2 ropes, the fetters of wanting and negativity, are completely cut. And then there's 5 more that I won't talk about tonight that in the final level of awakening are cut, and then the hot air balloon can float because it's no longer attached. So I'm going to give you 4 similes that the Buddha gave for stream entry. So the stream is the Noble Eightfold Path, and you can think about up in the mountains with the rains and the meltwaters, you get little streams, and then other streams sort of connect with them, and then they get big enough that they become rivers, and other rivers connect with them, and then finally it flows into one of the oceans. So if you toss a stick into the stream, eventually it's going to make its way to the ocean. So the stick entering the stream that's the stream entry. Before that, we're sort of running up and down along the bank of the stream, or just standing there, but we're not in the stream. But once you're in the stream, maximum of seven lifetimes to make it to the ocean, and the ocean stands for full awakening. So that's the first simile for stream entry. The next one is called gaining a footing, and this would be, instead of going down the stream, you're crossing it. And now it's like a big stream or a big river. and when you're in the middle of it, your feet can't touch the ground, and it might be a really fast river. So there might be, you may be swept down for a while. But if you can get close enough to the far shore so that your feet can sort of touch the ground and be solidly on the ground, so that you can stand up and you're going to be able to walk to the shore, then that's this gaining a footing is another analogy or simile for stream entry. A third one is going on a hike, and you're going through the forest, and your friends have told you this is a new hike for you, and your friends have told you there's a mountain you're going to go up, but it's very misty and you can't see this mountain. It's like the first time I took my husband to Vancouver, where I was born, and I told him there were mountains all around. Not all around, but in the north. And he didn't believe me, because the whole time he was there, it was misty. He never saw any mountains. So this is like you're on a hike, and you just have to have faith in your friend that you're hiking with, that there is a mountain there, but you don't know because you haven't seen that mountain. And then the analogy or the simile for stream entry is that the mist temporarily lifts and you see the mountain. So now you don't have to have faith in your friend anymore. You know for yourself there's a mountain there. And then the mist might close in again and you can't see it anymore, but you know it's there. So you know that the path you're on is the right path, and it will take you up that mountain. The last analogy is the dirt under the fingernail analogy. And the Buddha said to his disciples, he said that when you enter the stream, when you realize the first level of awakening, sort of like the hindrances or the unskillful qualities that are left for you to overcome are like the amount of dirt that's under your fingernail compared to all of the dirt in the planet Earth. So that's a pretty big analogy from all the dirt on the earth to just a little bit of dirt. So he's just saying there's not far to go when you do stream entry. There's just that little bit of dirt to try and get out from underneath your fingernail. Okay, so what are the conditions that we can put into place to help us to realize stream entry? So of course it's the Noble Eightfold Path, but then the Buddha names four they're called proximate conditions, because they're ones just before stream entry happens, or the closest ones to it. And I'll just read them off and then I'll go into more detail with them. So the first is association with people of integrity, or association with good people. The second is listening to the true Dhamma, the true teachings. The third is wise attention. And the fourth is practice in accordance with the Dhamma. You can't just listen. You actually have to practice. Okay, number one, association with people of integrity. So here's a quote from the Buddha. With regard to external factors, I don't see any other single factor like friendship with admirable people as doing so much for a person in training. One who is a friend with admirable people abandons what is unskillful and develops what is skillful. And that's from the Itivuttaka number 17. Then there's a really famous quote of the Buddha's when he's talking to Ananda, who was his attendant for the last 20 years of his life. Venerable Ananda said to the Blessed One, "This is half of the holy life, Lord, having admirable people as friends, companions, and colleagues." Don't say that, Ananda. Don't say that. Having admirable people as friends, companions, and colleagues is actually the whole of the holy life. A person who has admirable people as friends, companions, and colleagues is actually the whole of the holy life. A person who has admirable people as friends, companions, and colleagues can be expected to develop and pursue the Noble Eightfold Path. That's from Sanghamitta Nikaya, chapter 45, number 2. So we're not going to be able to practice a Noble Eightfold Path unless we've come into contact with people who are already on the path and can tell us about it. Otherwise, we remain ignorant to the path. So I think that's why he's calling it the whole of it. So now, how do you judge if somebody is a person with integrity? And the Buddha said it's very important to observe this person over a long period of time. You know, just think about all the sort of relationships that fail. And that might be because if you're just sort of meeting once in a while, you can put your best foot forward, you can act your best, and you're sort of having a good time together, and you're not facing adversity together. And so sort of how you respond to difficult situations, it doesn't show up. But then you get together as a couple, and then down the road some adversity happens, and oops, the person doesn't seem to be quite the same way you thought they were when there was no difficulties coming up. So it's really important to look, observe, listen to a person over a period of time. What's their speech like? What's their behavior like? Is it consistent? And does it remain the same when there's times of trouble, when there's stress? So you want to look in this person, do they have signs of greed or negativity or delusion, which just means not seeing reality? Here's a list of qualities of an admirable friend. They're full of faith in the Buddha and his teachings. They're virtuous. They're generous. They have a conscience. They have concern for others. They act with the intention to not harm self or others. They are learned. They are wise. And this refers to seeing impermanence and causality. Everything is like this is because that happened, cause and effect. It's not just random. There's causes for things that happen. And this person can show equanimity and not take it personally in response to what's called the 8 worldly winds. So for those of us living in this world, which is called samsara, there are these 8 winds that the Buddha talked about. The first 2 are gain and loss. So at times in life, you get things. You might get a new car, and then there's loss. You get into a car accident, or the car gets old and falls apart. Praise and blame. At times you do things and your friends are saying, oh wow, that was so great what you did. And other times they're going, didn't like that what you did. Praise and blame. The next is pleasure and pain. So at times you have a nice holiday, or you go to a nice concert, or you have a lovely meal. And then at other times you break a leg or you have a stomach ache or a migraine or whatever. So it's comes and goes. And then the last 2 worldly winds are success and failure. We have successes, things that work out for us in life, and then we have things that don't work out, that are failures. And so a good friend or a person with integrity can sort of flow with this reality of these 8 winds that are going to happen to all of us. Another couple of characteristics of an admirable friend is that they're grateful for help that's given to them and that they take care of their parents. And here's another simile from the Buddha about admirable friends. From the rise of this fish, from the break of its ripples, from its speed, it is a large fish, not a small one. In the same way, this person rises to an issue, applies their reasoning. From the way they address a question, this person is discerning, not dull. It is through discussion that a person's wisdom may be known, after a long period, not a short period. So that's from the Anguttara Nikaya, chapter 4, number 192. Okay, so that's the first sort of proximate condition for this entering of the stream, this first realization of awakening, first level of realization of awakening. The second precondition is listening to the true Dhamma. So once you've found a teacher that appears to have integrity, then you want to spend time with that teacher and learn the teachings of the Buddha. And then it's important to listen to the teachings with the following qualities. Having faith in the teachings, having the desire to listen, having good judgment, and one's mind not being obstructed with unskillful qualities. So can you imagine coming here if you just had a fight with your best friend? How well are you going to be able to listen to what's being said? You're going to be sort of boiling inside and thinking about, what they had said that made you angry or whatever. It's going to be really hard to listen. So this is what they're talking about. Okay, next is a list of the benefits of listening to the true Dhamma. So you learn new information. In the Q&A period, you get to clarify what you've heard before, so you can get rid of doubt. If you have some incorrect views, you get to correct your views, and your mind grows serene. And I think when we did our sharing on about our antidotes to doubt last week, that was, I think, the commonest thing that people shared was this feeling of serenity that they had from the practice. Now, it's important when you're sitting and listening to the Dhamma, you don't just swallow it whole and unexamined. It's important to contemplate it, to ponder it, and then to realize the truth of the teachings for yourself. And there were examples of that we shared last week. Now, how do you know if it's the true Dhamma? So there's a very famous teaching of the Buddha to the Kalamas. The Kalamas were the name of a village of people, and the Buddha showed up to, in their village. And when he came to offer them teachings, they said, "We're so confused. We keep having these spiritual teachers come by, and each one says, 'Listen to me. I've got the truth. Listen to me. Don't listen to anybody else. They don't know what they're talking about.' And then the next one comes along and says, 'Listen to me. Don't listen to anybody else. I know what's right. They don't know what's right.'" So every teacher ends up saying this. And they said, what is the truth? And so the Buddha said to them, well, first of all, if you know they're saying things that are unskillful or blameworthy or would be criticized by the wise or would cause harm, then don't even start listening to them. But if they're saying things that you go, I wonder if this is or isn't the truth, he said you may not be able to tell right away, but you need to put the teachings into practice and look at what is the result. Does your behavior, because of practicing this way, become more skillful? Is there less suffering for yourself or for others? Like, is it leading to less suffering, less harm? Does it lead to letting go rather than taking, accumulating wanting more stuff? Are you able to let go? Are you becoming modest, or are you walking around saying, look at me, I'm so great? Are you feeling contented? Or are you feeling more discontented? Are you developing persistence rather than laziness? So, are you becoming unburdensome, or are you a burden to your friends and family? So he's saying this is the way to judge if teachings are the true Dhamma or not. Okay, so that's the second precondition for entering the stream, is listening to the true Dhamma. The third is wise attention, which we talked about quite a bit last week when we talked about doubt. So this refers to seeing things in terms of cause and effect, understanding that things are impermanent, giving attention to things that are skillful, not to things that are blameworthy, and attending to things, giving wise attention to things that don't lead to harm and suffering. So that's wise attention, the third precondition. And the fourth one is practice. Practice according to the Dhamma, in accordance with the Dhamma. Now, what this means really depends on where you are with your practice. Because we're all householders, we're not monastics. Like monastics have decided to renounce and just really focus on getting their joy, their happiness, their pleasure from what they develop inside. Those of us in the householder life, we still haven't, most of us haven't let go of wanting to have some pleasure from the sensory world. And so, no problem with wherever you decide you are. That's where you are, and don't try and think, I should be some other way. No, you're wherever you are on the path. But hopefully everyone is abiding by virtuous behavior and acting with kindness and with generosity. That's sort of our baseline of being good human beings. But as we develop in our practice and really get to experience that serenity, that contentment, and at times the feeling of bliss coming from within, then the outside world, and this is Scott's famous saying from when we first met, that, once you're starting to develop real feelings of joy and contentment and peace from within, then trying to put out the effort to make that happen from the sensory world takes on a been there, done that kind of a feeling. Like you just sort of lose interest in putting in the effort it takes to conjure up those feelings from the sensory world. So it's kind of like, why put out that effort for something that's uncertain if it's going to happen and is temporary, when you have this really deep experience of satisfaction that's coming from this no cost, free, simple practice of meditation. And with the deepening of the practice, a deeper insight into the unsatisfactoriness of samsara, this worldly existence, sort of arises. And then craving for it ends. And craving, the Buddha defines craving for three major things. One is for sensory experiences, hearing nice sounds, tasting nice food, having nice feelings, seeing nice things, all that. So that's one type of craving. The second is craving for existence. And the third is craving for non-existence. And this we all sort of experience when we're feeling kind of miserable or bored. Then you just want to go to bed, like check out, stop being conscious by going to sleep. Or you get drunk or, do drugs, so you're spaced out with drugs. Or you just get lost playing internet games or something, something like that. And then in worse situations, most extreme situations, would be killing yourself, suicide. So anyway, those are the three sort of big forms of craving, and that ends, well, as I said, at the third level of awakening, not at the first level. It completely ends. It's weakened at the second level of awakening, and then completely is gone at the third level. So at the beginning, we use the teachings of the Buddha to ease our journey in the sensory world. Like for those of us who are still want to have some sensory experiences, some joy from the sensory world, then we're using the teachings of the Buddha to ease our journey in the sensory world. And that's totally legit, and it's wonderful. You know, that's how I think how we all start the practice. But maybe later in this lifetime or in a future lifetime, because of the joy or contentment or bliss that you're getting from your meditation practice, as that's increasing, then this pull to the sensory world can start dissipating. And so if one's content just with a contemplative life, you might become a monastic or kind of lead a more hermit-like existence. And most, I think, Western monastics, like it's different if you've grown up in a Buddhist country, but we're not a Buddhist country. So most like Canadian monastics or Western monastics, they're just like us. They start off in a meditation group like this, and then, you know, something clicks for them. You know, either there's some kind of an insight or this deep, you know, feeling of contentment within, and then they decide to ordain as a monastic, like Ahimsa. She started out in a meditation group just like us. Or you might just sort of pull back into more of a hermit's like kind of life if you stay in lay life. So I wanted to bring this up today because even though it's may not be the immediate future for most of us, there may be one or two in the room where this happens in this lifetime. Happened for Aya. Okay, so that's what I wanted to say about the first level of awakening, stream entry. So we have time now for questions or discussion. Yes, Caleb.
The first step that you mentioned, I think I choose to have my good relationships with people that have integrity and fall under a lot of those attributes. But there's a lot of acquaintances or friends in my life that might not necessarily fall under that banner of integrity or wise friends. What's the strategy for dealing with those types of people and the interactions of life that are necessary to have with those people, and also recognizing that some friends are not may not have great integrity for a certain period of time that kind of evolves.
Right. Yeah, so the danger, you know, like if they're not leading like a virtuous life or something, the danger, if you're not really solid in your own virtue, that you could get pulled along. So there's a danger in that. So you either make a conscious decision to sort of start pulling away from those people, or as your own practice deepens, then there's less interest in being associated with those kinds of people. And so then you just sort of naturally start letting them go. So either you just, you know, you have to sort of make a willed act to do it, or it just sort of starts happening naturally. But the big thing is just watch for the danger of starting to join them in their, you know. But, you know, we're all, I left out an extremely important part. I didn't tell you what the 3 fetters are. In stream awakening, I told you about what was cut in all the others, but I didn't mention the 3 ropes that are cut for the first level of awakening, stream entry, and this applies to your question here. So the first rope or fetter that's cut at stream entry is doubt in the Buddhist teaching. So like the mist has parted, you've seen the mountain is there, and you just know it in your heart. You know the Buddhist teachings. You've had enough positive experiences with carrying out the teachings that you know these are good teachings. No more doubt. The second fetter that's cut is you don't have this belief that just by doing rites and rituals that you'll become awakened. Like if I just bow and burn incense or chant, these can be very skillful means that help us transition from the busyness of our daily life into our meditation practice. So they can be very skillful, but they're not the things that are going to lead us to awakening. It's following the Noble Eightfold Path that's going to lead there. And the third, this is that applies to your question here, is that the belief in a self, that there is a self that exists apart from causes and conditions, that totally falls away. You know that we're only here because of various causes and conditions. And when those change, then there's not some kind of a solid, unchanging self within here that goes from lifetime to lifetime. We're a verb, we're a process, we're changing all the time. And like if you want to, you could do some sort of thought experiments with this. Like what happens if you get diabetes and you have to have your leg amputated? Or your heart fails and you have a heart transplant, or you get a replaced hip, or your cataracts, lenses. Are you still you when all those body parts are being changed? And then just think of our mood changes. Sometimes we're cheerful. Well, are we a cheerful person? Well, sometimes we're not. Sometimes we're a kind of a crabby, irritable person. So which are we? Well, we're not either of those solidly. It's just various conditions. When we're well rested and we're in good circumstances, then we're cheerful. And then when we're tired or stressed or whatever, then our crabbiness comes out. Or sometimes we're energetic, but then other times we're lazy. Well, which are we? Well, we're neither. It's just due to conditions. So those are the three fetters. So so no more doubt. You give up the idea that rites and rituals can save you, and you truly understand that our self is just here due to causes and conditions. And now, I went on such a sidetrack here, I've forgotten I really saw how it related to your question, but now it's gone.
Sanghamitta, would it be, who am I without these people in my life?
Yeah, I can't remember. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Anyway, you can have a thought experiment on that.
All right.
Oh, okay, we got a hand up from Julie.
Yeah, sorry, I kind of had exactly the same question. Kind of how you deal with people who are already in your life, who kind of so I've got the problem at the moment that I don't feel as supported. I have really lovely friends and family, and they're really loving and they love me so much, but they're kind of I feel like they know me so many years now that they can't really adapt to me being a practicing Buddhist, although I'm already for 5 years, and they're should get used to it now a little bit more, but I really find it so difficult to know how to deal with it. Really difficult for me.
Yeah.
To know what it's difficult.
Yeah. So we've got people in the group here who've been through the same, having the same experience where friends or family just don't accept their conversion, say, from Christianity to following the teachings of the Buddha. And so I think one way to really decrease your suffering is to stop expecting them to be happy about your choice. But, you know, feel okay in yourself. Like, this is what feels right and true for you. And then spend time with other people who are on the path, and get your support from them. Don't try and get your support for your Buddhist practice from your your old friends and your family. Drop that idea.
It's just I love them a lot. Like, there's a lot of love, but I also feel that they're distracting me. Like, sometimes they're not helpful for my path. This is the problem. So I'm really in a conflict sometimes.
Yeah.
I kind of like get distracted.
Right. This has reminded me what I wanted to say to Caleb. Now let's see if I can keep it in my mind. Because we're not solid entities, then if we have some unvirtuous behavior, like your friends who have maybe some unvirtuous behavior, that's probably not the whole of them. They probably have other conditions in their life where really positive qualities or good things arise. So if you can try and, like if you're wanting to keep these friends, to try and focus on, with them or be with them, or try and create the conditions that allow them to show that aspect of, of their being in the world. So I'll just tell you a quick little story, Julie, about Thich Nhat Hanh. I don't know how many of you know him, but a very famous Vietnamese monk, really beautiful monk. I was fortunate enough to do 2 retreats with him. And he had the government in Vietnam, he didn't allow him to come back in the country after he had sort of gone on this peace tour of trying, during the Vietnam War, trying to encourage peace. Then his government wouldn't let him back in the country, so he set up a village in France called Plum Village. And one summer, this young girl, maybe she was maybe a teenager or whatever, I guess she had really incorrigible behavior. I don't know if she was in an orphanage, or I can't remember the details anymore. But anyway, the people who were caring for her sort of had thrown their hands up, and they sent her to Plum Village for the summer. And because there were like hundreds of people at Plum Village were just full of love and, caring and everything else, this girl totally transformed, and she went back looking like a totally different person. And so this group home or whatever thought, wow, this is great. We want to send a busload of difficult kids. And Thich Nhat Hanh said, no. He said, the only reason it worked with this girl is we had this huge pool of loving, caring, warm people, and one really, disturbed young woman. He said, if you send a busload of them, then there's not enough of this good energy to support them. So this is what, both of you have to make sure you do in your lives, that you've got the supportive people, the whatever, that you have a bigger pool of that, and then you're going to be okay when you're with your family, with your friends that are pushing your buttons a little bit, you're going to be less prone to having those buttons pushed, or less prone to sort of getting pulled into their unskillful behavior if you've got this much larger pool of support. Yes, Scott.
For the third fetter, for stream entry, it's pretty easy to get an intellectual concept of that. Would you need a more direct meditative deep experience of it to cut that fetter? Or is it just enough to understand it at a fairly deep level intellectually?
No, no to the just understanding it intellectually. This is a really gut level, transformative experience. And it's not something you can make happen. And in fact, if you're probably trying to make it, then that's sort of like craving or pushing, and then it's going to like kill it. It's not for sure not going to happen. So we just need to be with our meditation. Like, first of all, the whole Noble Eightfold Path, like have your base of morality, have the right view, which is the Four Noble Truths that the Buddha taught, living a virtuous life, putting in right effort, the four right efforts, doing your meditation practice, developing stillness, and it's just putting in the conditions, being content with how things are right now, not putting in the conditions going, I hope. It's, yes, we all have the goal of ending suffering, of awakening. And so we know, and so that's our goal. We've been told sort of what are the conditions we need to put in. And so then we focus in this moment, putting in those conditions, but being content with the reality of this is how I am at this moment, being content, and just keep putting in those conditions, and hopefully one day it happens.
On that end, like you talked about, you kind of end up hermiting or being more in solitude, but what if you are in a situation where you have these obligations, like
yeah, so that it's not going to happen at that time, because that would be non-virtuous, right? If you're a mom with kids, you can't just abandon the kids and become a hermit. And several people tried to ordain, and the Buddha wouldn't let them because they had duties, they had obligations. So remember I said one of the things for an admirable friend was they took care of their parents, like they took care of their obligations. Yeah. So so you're in this stage of your life, so
Nice try.
it's so quiet here.
another time. Oh. Time for one last question or comment, and then we'll end. Okay, so we'll end with the Brahma Vihara of compassion, karuna. So Bodhipala, you fixed up the book here, and I don't know where to find it anymore.
I'm so sorry. So the pages.
Oh, I found it. Okay. So first of all, bring to mind someone you know who has great physical or mental suffering, and while being aware of their particular difficulties, direct these compassionate phrases to them. May you be free of your pain and sorrow. May you find peace. Now send the phrases to yourself. May I be free of my pain and sorrow. May I find peace. Now bring to mind someone who's been very supportive of you, and direct the phrases to them. May you be free of your pain and sorrow. May you find peace. Now think of a neutral person, someone you don't love or hate, and send the phrases to them. May you be free of your pain and sorrow. May you find peace. And now bring to mind someone you have a difficult relationship with, and send the phrases to them. May you too be free of your pain and sorrow. May you too find peace. May all beings be free of pain and sorrow. May all beings find peace. Remember that all beings face great potential suffering, no matter how fortunate their immediate circumstances may be. This meditation does not eliminate suffering. What we are doing is being able to acknowledge suffering, to open to it and respond to it with a tenderness of heart which allows us to join with all beings and realize we are never alone. May the merit of our practice be shared with all sentient beings, named and unnamed. Lisa's family, Blair, Tracy. May all beings be well and happy. Thank you, everyone.